years before Triple H was given the chance to, because of her father and her mother, of course, being the CEO and the owner of the WWE and having each 50% control of the WWE. Eventually, she and Shane would share 25% of the company, and they would grasp a understanding of the business before someone like Triple H ever got the chance to, because, of course, Triple H, of course, has been themed of being the one who slept his way to the top of the industry, and he's been throwing a fair share of criticism his way because he's believed to have slept his way to the top by a lot. Some of the top wrestling reviewers who are out there, and I don't blame people for feeling the way they do about Triple H. I mean, what has Triple H said that's been intelligent, or what has he done that's actually considered to be intelligent over the last 4 years? Push Daniel Bryan, who we knew was destined for success because of his relationship with Shawn Michaels, being trained by Shawn Michaels, and because of Triple H's friendship with Shawn Michaels for years. They gave Daniel Bryan the benefit of the doubt quickly before they gave anyone the benefit of the doubt, more so, putting him in a WrestleMania main event against the likes of Triple H, having Daniel Bryan win both against Triple H and former members of Evolution, Randy Orton and Dave Batista, in a phenomenal triple threat match. We knew Daniel Bryan was destined for greatness because of the fan reaction and because of how he was endorsed by Triple H and Stephanie and Shawn Michaels for years, knowing that he had what it took. Daniel Bryan, of course, coming into the business with so much promise and so much potential, winning every championship possible that he was eligible to have competed for. But I think more time needed to be devoted to some of the upcoming superstars we have seen come in and out from NXT, and so much wrestlers have kind of come and gone that had so much promise, and Triple H should have focused on them more so than he did the 3 or 4 wrestlers that he loves to play favorites with. It's either Randy Orton or Daniel Bryan or somebody else with that category, Seth Rollins, who unfortunately went down with a major injury. Again, it plays back on the fact that you are overworking your talents like Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins. They were bound to break down eventually. Seth Rollins breaking down with a major knee injury, one of the more difficult to rebound and come back off of. It's expected that Seth Rollins will make a full recovery, but not until 9 months are allowed for a recovery process. He'll be returning around either July or August of 2016 up to SummerSlam, and possibly then we could see Seth Rollins return against the Authority and give us this match with Triple H and Seth Rollins for the first time after months of having this one teased and hyped up. It's believed he'll return against the Authority, so obviously Seth Rollins is coming back with a lot of promise. But what are you supposed to do in the 9 months that Seth Rollins is out on injury on the supposed DL, with the likes of Randy Orton out for an indefinite period of time because of the shoulder injury, Sting's out with a major neck injury? When you have serious injuries like neck and knee and back injuries, I mean, really, what is the fault? What's really going on behind proverbial closed doors? Is it the fault of WWE Creative and the chairman Vince McMahon for overworking his talent or pushing them as hard as what he is? Or is it the fault of someone like Triple H who believes that there's so much promise that goes with the likes of Sting and Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton, which no doubt there is, but do you really need to be overworking your talent to the point where you have them suffer major knee and back and neck injuries? I mean, give me a break. I mean, a knee injury is severe enough, but neck injuries to legends like Sting at over 58, close to 60 years of age, do you really need to see this happening? Does it really need to be happening? And where does the line need to be drawn? Where does this all need to cease to exist? We really need to reach a point of finality with wrestlers seeing on the DL. We're seeing big names on the DL, not minor names on the DL, not mid-card wrestlers on the DL, big names because of Triple H. Also, the creative juices in WWE haven't been flowing enough, in my opinion. From my perspective, the creativeness is just not there anymore with WWE. Just as it was said, companies like Disney and Marvel had lost their creative edge when the CEOs of the companies walked out on them years ago. I think WWE, was falling into the same category of how their creative juices and how they've lost their creativity, and there's no way that that creativity can be rekindled. There's been nothing going on in WWE, at least for the last 3 years, dare I say that, or can get away with saying that there's nothing creative going on. Freddie Prinze Jr. is not getting the job done. He couldn't get it done for years, ever since he signed to be a creative team writer in WWE for whatever brand he was running storylines for, Raw or SmackDown or both. He obviously couldn't get the job done, so you need to hire better writers and far more creative and influential writers in WWE to get something going, to get some unpredictability going, to shake up either divisions that you want to shake up in WWE, no matter what division you're talking about, tag team, divas, whatever. You need to shake up the complexity of WWE and significantly change it to get more people talking about it, and talking about it more so in a positive way, because as a result of the uncreativeness we're seeing from WWE and have seen for the better part of the last 3 or 4 years, dare I say that, people are going to be watching more promotional companies like Ring of Honor and TNA, which have more promise affiliated with them, giving us more of an option and more of a variety with the match types, the divisions, the different types of matches they are offering us. There's so much creativity coming from Ring of Honor and TNA, which you wouldn't expect to be seeing in 2015, with WWE having an overflow of talent in WWE, but always reiterating the fact that the Daniel Bryans and Seth Rollins of the world are the ones who should have the influence placed on them. It's only now late in 2015, for instance, we're seeing a push of Roman Reigns, that we're seeing a push of people like Bo Dallas and King Barrett and Rusev and Sheamus as world champion. Why couldn't this been happening earlier in the year, halfway through the year, the halfway point by June or July? Why couldn't this been happening? Why couldn't we have been seeing feuds between Sheamus and Seth Rollins, or feuds between Seth Rollins and Adrian Neville or Bo Dallas, or pushes of King Barrett and Rusev? Why did Rusev, for instance, have to be caught in a storyline with the likes of Summer Rae and Dolph Ziggler and Tyler Breeze? That was utterly pathetic. You had this over 200, close to 300-pound man who could have easily been put in a match and a feud with someone who was more meaningful than the likes of Dolph Ziggler, surrounding his infatuation with Summer Rae and the fact that Summer Rae was his manager/valet, replacing Lana and having Lana in the mix as well. Rusev deserved so much better than what he got, and possibly deserved the WWE Championship reign or a shot at being a contender for that championship long before he ever got it. It's only because we're seeing so many big names on the DL that we're seeing people like Sheamus, Rusev, and King Barrett forming this United Nation or this International Alliance, which I've referred to calling them over the last couple of weeks, and this faction warfare storyline with ECW originals now returning like Rhino, the Dudleys, Tommy Dreamer, who I can't even believe is back in WWE. I mean, where are the creative juices, and why haven't they been flowing? Why are we only seeing pushes late in 2015? It's the blame of Triple H. It's the blame of the authority, and they really need to go. In WWE, we will not see better days and times in professional wrestling until people like Triple H are gone from WWE. He's need to go for months, and I think that he really needs to take a step back and reevaluate some of the choices he's been making, because he hasn't been saying or doing anything intelligent for years. In WWE. Years ago when talk of Triple H becoming the owner of WWE, Vince McMahon's time was over and long surpassed him, was going around, I said that was the worst decision that wrestling could have ever made, putting Triple H in power, giving Triple H a stock with professional wrestling, whatever the percentage was. Wouldn't doubt it if it was anywhere from 25 to 30% of WWE creative control that Triple H had. Obviously, he had a significant influence on the storylines he was involved in. Whoever Triple H is in a match with, or a series of matches with, you can damn well bet he's going to win at least once or twice in this series and have the last lap by the time it's all said and done, the dust is settled and the smoke is cleared, because of his influence that he's had with the pushes of people like Batista and Randy Orton and Shawn Michaels for years, Daniel Bryan, and some of the upcoming names like Seth Rollins, who he believes is the future of WWE, his protege, if you would, or have been his protege for years. And I think that, it's just ridiculous how Triple H just reiterates the same pathetic concepts over and over and over and over and over. For instance, it reminds me of the McMahon-Helmsley era when himself and Triple H and Stephanie were on top of WWE, making no DQ matches at the main events of Raws and SmackDowns week after week after week. How is that supposed to be direct competition, providing competition for WCW? Yes, it had a significant influence. You were coming out of the Attitude Era, but, how is that supposed to create competition for rival companies like WCW and even TNA? It's not. When you're seeing the same adequate concepts reiterated all the time for main events of Raw and SmackDown, no DQ matches every single week. And then you wonder why your ratings are either tying WCW or other companies or lower than other companies for over 86 weeks. It's because the same adequate concepts are reiterated all the time. Because of who? Triple H. Why can you have had somebody else in power for a significant amount of time? Sure, Stone Cold Steve Austin as CEO was something different, but it didn't last long enough for wrestling fans to even enjoy it or notice the change of flow of power in WWE. And yes, you had different general managers when the brand separated by 2002, people like Paul Heyman, Stephanie Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley. You had different general managers. Kurt Angle was in there during his injury time with his neck injury, giving us some exposure on TV while he was on the DL. But the thing was, those roles didn't last long enough, and then we were back to Triple H being in power by 2011. What a difference 10 years has made, hey, on the wrestling industry. Is it for the better or is it for the worse? And I think I can get away, and I think I can speak for everybody when I say it's for the worse with wrestling, because it's lost its creative edge, and until it rekindles, finds a way of rekindling its creative edge, I shudder to think what sort of position the wrestling business is going to be in 5 or 6 years from now, because it's not headed in a very promising direction, and it's because of who? It's because of Triple H. It's because of nobody else. Vince McMahon is a true inspiration for anyone who ever wanted to run an enterprise, for anyone who ever wanted to be a chairman of their own company. Vince McMahon is an example of a successful promoter, a true entrepreneur in wrestling, and I think that's why Vince McMahon should still be on TV, even though the man is 70 years of age, because he's a true entrepreneur of professional wrestling. I think that's why he needs more exposure. That's why Vince McMahon and JR, people like that, need to be brought back, because if they're not brought back, if they're still not having influence on the creative control in WWE, then WWE has no reason to exist anymore as long as people like Triple H and Stephanie are still in power. Here's the thing. When I read a story on ProWrestling.com and .net that Vince McMahon was still the one allegedly calling the shots backstage, I couldn't have been more proud, because at least Vince McMahon had a sense of direction for, how to run a company and how to actually do things the right way. And that's why I was more happy to know that Vince McMahon was in power more so than what Triple H was, and he was just in power for TV, because as long as someone like Vince McMahon is running the company, actually the company has some hope, a glimmer of hope, if you would, rather than Triple H calling the shots all the time, because I don't think he has a creative direction and or sense on how to run a business. Sure, he's on, TV running it, he's the promoter of it, while Vince McMahon remains off TV. But I couldn't have been more proud to read the fact that Vince McMahon was still the one having creative control backstage, and a significant amount of creative control, and it's believed, apparently from what I've been reading, that Vince will have creative control until the day he dies, and